Welcome to Conversations with Women Living Well After 50. I'm Sue Long Carrick, and it's lovely to have you join me for another conversation. On with the butter. When I received a copy of this recently published book, I have to admit the title didn't immediately make sense to me. However, I thought of the old saying, never judge a book by its cover, or the title in this case, and kept an open mind. Regular listeners will know that I always end my podcasts with embrace and live life every day. So I was delighted that the premise of this book was to keep moving, keep doing, and keep spreading more living into every day. My guest today is Heidi Herman, author of several books, including her most recent, On With the Butter, Spread More Living into Everyday Life. Inspired by her 94-year-old mother, who at the time of her death was still writing of her experiences in her final work, Never Too Late, which Heidi actually finished, Heidi has written this motivational book, which includes ideas and encouragement to find activities and experiences in life, especially after retirement. So let's go and join the conversation. Well, welcome, Heidi, and it's lovely to have you join me today for Conversations with Women Living Well After 50.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy being here.
Right, now I've read your book. So what was the motivation for you to write On With the Butter? And as I said in my introduction, when I first read the title, I thought, oh, I don't really understand what this book's about. So how did you come up with the title as well?
Several things went into this, honestly. Once I reached about that mid 40s age, that when we all start thinking about retirement and what comes next, I kept noticing this common theme where so many people were afraid of retirement. They were
Mm,
afraid of boredom and they were tired of their career or their job, can't wait for retirement. But it was like this murky, you know, unsure area. And I have never had that problem. I had the wonderful benefit and advantage of being raised by a mother who was so adventurous and inquisitive and curious about the world. And she sort of taught that to me. And that was something that I really wanted to impart in this book was that idea of you don't lose your purpose when you retire from a job. Your career defines you early in your life, and sometimes family, maybe being a mother, those types of things. You go through changes in life, but they don't have to be scary changes. And we can look forward to, positive things and fun things and adventure.
mm, mm. So tell me, actually, On With the Butter is a translation, isn't it? So tell
It
me a bit
it
about the
is.
title because I'm interested.
As I mentioned, my mom was kind of like my inspiration in life and adventure, and she was Icelandic and born and raised, met my father during World War II at a USO dance. And one thing that she always said in life is just keep moving. No matter what it was, just stay active, keep moving, and life will be good if you just keep moving. And she passed away last year,
Mm,
and I was reading an article in an Icelandic paper, and it made reference to this phrase, "Afram med smorðið." And I thought, wow, okay, that sounds kind of cool. And it literally translates to on with the butter. And what that phrase means, it means just keep moving, keep going forward, keep doing what you're doing. And it was just such a perfect philosophy, that mom always taught me. And it just became that perfect battle cry for anyone over the age of 50, Aftermath Smorthid, on with the butter.
yeah, that sounds great. Now, you're very lucky to have had your mum for as long as you did, and I'm sorry for your loss. My mum died back in 1986, so I'm always a little bit envious of those who, still have their mum for quite some time. And
Mhm.
you describe your mum as a life adventurer. And I mean, at 94, she was still active and adventurous and still working on a book, which I believe you actually finished, uh, after she died. So she would have been a great role model for you and also for YOLO, which I wasn't sure what that was either. So I just wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what YOLO is and maybe share some of the adventures that you have in this book, because On with the Butter is, full of different activities and adventures that you've shared with your mum, and as well as on your own. And yeah, I just wonder if we can talk about that for a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I love to. I love to. YOLO is just a modern expression, and I'm over 50 myself, so I can honestly say that the kids say, and it's just this: you only live once, YOLO. So it's an idea, a concept of take advantage of everything that you experience now and every opportunity that you have now, because you only get one trip around in life.
Mm,
And that's kind of encapsulates a little bit of the philosophy that my mom had, and she always used to call it just say yes. Whatever there is to do, do that thing. And she and I did have a number of adventures together, but her life adventure started, way back. She liked to say when she was 20 years old, her first adventure truly was becoming engaged on her second date with my father.
wow.
He proposed, and then she got on a troop ship less than a year later, married, and came to the United States and started a life. And that's how she lived her life throughout all the years. And as a youngster, I remember family vacations that involved whitewater rafting and zip lining. And when she was 88, she went paragliding for the first time. And someone wrote an article and said 88 and feeling great. And she thought that was so much fun that the next year she said, now I'm 89 and feeling fine.
Oh,
And
lovely.
so every year she sort of did something a little bit different until she came up to 93 and said 93 and it's new to me.
Wow.
And so she went through an entire year of deliberately trying to do 93 new things. And that's where that year came from.
What an inspirational woman. What a role model. I hope that we can all be like that, because it really comes down to your attitude to life, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And that's, like you asked, what were some of the adventures that
Mm,
she and I did together? We were going to be guest speakers at a festival out in New Jersey. And at that time, we lived in Illinois. And for us, those who may not be familiar with that geography, it's about a probably 18-hour drive. And that's an incredibly long drive
mm.
for a one presentation. So we thought, well, if we have to go that far, we are going to enjoy it. So we took 10 days and drove up through Canada and back down and just enjoyed ourselves. And one of the things we hit along the way, we're driving through some back road and I saw a sign that said free wine tasting. So, okay, me being me, I'm like, wow, look at that. It didn't matter that it was 10:30 in the morning. I looked at mom and I said, hey, and she's like, sure.
It's got to be
So
time for a wine somewhere in the world, hasn't
it
it? So,
does, right? And plus, it was just a taste.
yeah,
We
yeah,
weren't drinking; it was just
no,
a taste. So we pulled off into the parking lot. We went in. We taste tested some wines. We got educated, but there was such fun polka music going in the background that another group came in, and it was two couples, and one of the gentlemen started tapping his foot and mom started tapping her foot, and he said, well, as long as we're both in the music, let's dance. So they got up and they start dancing and just having a good old time. at 11 o'clock in the morning at the side of the road at a winery. And it's just like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Just embrace that moment.
That's right. And being spontaneous, isn't it? I mean, how often do we sort of, oh, well, we've got to drive 18 hours. And mind you, that's actually a flight from Australia to Europe or, the States or something. But so I can identify with what that distance is. And also Australia is so big that it could take us that to drive, to some parts. So
Mhm.
but what I love is that you didn't just say, well, we have to go to a speaking engagement, we'll just drive there or we'll get there and come back. You actually made an adventure of it and decided to have some time together as well,
Mhm.
because that would be precious for you, creating those memories with your mum. And having that spontaneity is just lovely, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, and it was not an isolated incident. We did that sort of thing a lot. I tell a story in the book when we were driving through Wyoming once, and there's a section where there's two different interstates, and you have to go 116 miles on a two-lane state road to go between the two interstates. 116 miles should only take maybe an hour and a half, maybe. It took us like 8 hours because we stop so much. You drive along and you're like, well, there's a sign for, the Mormon Pushcart Museum. Well, we must stop there.
Yeah,
And then you come across Independence Rock, and that's so famous. We just had to stop and go see it. And when you have these things in life, it goes back to that idea, you don't know if you'll ever have that opportunity again or that moment again. So when we try so hard to keep our lives on a schedule, oh, well, we have to get to the hotel by, 6 o'clock. Well, do we
yeah,
really?
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I know what you mean because I've done quite a bit of traveling. I've been very fortunate to be able to travel the world with my husband. And in the early parts, I sometimes missed out on opportunities because of either thinking that, oh, we've got to get back to the hotel, or, oh, I don't think I could do that, or whatever. So it's either limiting beliefs and you miss out. You come home and you go, I wish I'd done that because I may not ever get back there again. And so
mhm.
now we haven't been able to travel, of course, with COVID, but we will one day. And, my attitude changed over time because I thought, you know what, we're not going to be here again. So go for that helicopter flight if you want, or go and do this if you want, and enjoy the experience and find the joy. And that's what I'm getting talking to you, the joy that you find in being spontaneous or just looking and seeing at the opportunities with your mum, making that 1.5 hour drive into 8 hours. I mean, it shows that you're living in the moment, and many of us don't do that, and we do miss out on opportunities or surprises. You might have found
Absolutely.
a sign, and that most people might go, oh yeah, well I won't bother going there, and but you did, and it turned into a lovely surprise and something perhaps you weren't expecting.
Absolutely. And I have to say, sometimes uh these wonderful, I call them happy accidents, happen, and you just have to embrace them. And I found, especially now in the past 6 months, when we have been facing so much uncertainty and stress and fear and a lot of things with COVID, and feeling like, well, one day I'll be able to go do things again, and one day I'll be able to leave the house. And I just I personally have found that it's actually even more important for me now, dealing with all this, to make time and arrangements to go outside,
Mm,
because fresh air is still good for you, it's still healthy, not in crowds, not
no,
going to big tourist places and that. But I have found couple of secret little trails in that are completely unoccupied right now. So getting out and doing some hikes and actually going out to the lake, and for the first time seeing an eagle here in South Dakota and its nest. And, I feel like, maybe that's something that I saw because there are fewer tourists out, because, there isn't that activity. Now, all of a sudden, wow, this was a sight and a little outdoor adventure I had because of COVID.
Mm,
So instead of having it hold me back, me thinking about, well, not that I can't do anything, but how can I do something
yeah.
can lead to adventures on their own.
Mm, mm. Yes, it all comes down to attitude and mindset, doesn't it?
It does.
So I want to talk a little bit about the book because I really enjoyed it. And I also like the way at the end of each chapter you sort of went through where you had been and given details about the area and that sort of thing, because it made me think, oh, I think I might go and visit there one day. So I like that approach as well. Um, and there's lots of books about retirement out there, healthy living in retirement, that sort of thing. What was the main message you wanted to get across to the readers, for them to take away from On with the Butter?
Hmm. Yeah, you make a good point. This is not a book about uh, creating money for retirement. It's not about health and fitness. It's not about, the transition to retirement. It truly is just to spark your imagination through ideas and stories and resources to say, okay, I'm going into another phase of life. How can I live it now?
Mm,
Because like we touched on earlier, it's not about your career anymore or earning money, but it could be. If your career is something that you loved and you really want to hang on to that, well, in retirement, you can be a mentor for a young business owner. You can continue to work part-time purely for the love of it, or look into, recover a hobby that you liked when you were younger. And, so I think we went up and counted in the book, there are over 200 specific ideas that you can use as a spark of inspiration to take on and explore how you might like to have retirement.
mm,
And that's really what it's about, is how to live in retirement.
mm, mm. Because many people find it difficult. They have a perception of what retirement's going to be like, and how often do you hear people say, oh, I can't wait to retire, I'm going to have all this time and I'll be able to do things I want to do. And then retirement day comes, and after the honeymoon period where you feel, oh, I haven't got to get up early, I don't, my time's my own, you really
Mm.
start to feel a little bit lost, because perhaps you've been defined by your career, or and you haven't kept up hobbies or interests during your working life, and suddenly you have all this time, but we question what our purpose is. What do we do now? So what are some of the activities or advice that you could give for people who um, might help them to start living each day and taking these adventures and opportunities?
Mhm. It is so personal to everyone,
Mm,
especially again with COVID, what everyone is comfortable with.
mm,
And in the book, I do break it down into different areas, like activities outdoors. And if somebody says, yeah, I'm just not comfortable doing anything outdoors right now, that's okay. You can go to a different chapter. I have chapters on food, on using technology. For me personally, I'll pick on myself as an example. This year, I grew my garden, and I'm not much of a green thumb at all. So, and I planted new fruit trees. I've made apple butter. I've done canning. I'm learning Icelandic, which is quite a difficult language.
yes, yes, it would be.
um, And I'm still active in Meals on Wheels and with my church and some family events. But everyone, I think, as far as finding how to connect with what's next, it could be looking back to what you used to enjoy and recovering that, maybe
Mm,
hobbies that went by the wayside, throughout life, or if you never had those, saying, gee, when I was a kid, I always wanted to learn how to play the guitar,
mm,
or I always wanted to run, an Ironman marathon. And you know what? At certain ages, it's okay to still have those dreams.
mm.
When she was 93, that was one of my mom's 93 new experiences. She went to Vancouver and she entered the Sun Run, which is, very well-known North American 5K run. And she entered in the walkers division.
Wow.
She knew she may not be able to walk the whole thing. Although, as it turned out, right as she got to the starting line, a freak hailstorm hit the race and they stopped.
Oh,
So, yeah,
oh, that
who
was a
knew?
shame. Yeah. But
Yeah.
she still went for it. She still didn't say, oh, well, I'm too old for this.
Yep.
And
She
I think,
had the shirt. She was at the starting line
ah,
and ready to say, I don't know how far I can make it, but I'm going to at least start. And again, that's sort of what the book is all about, is just giving ideas. It can be physical activity, it can be learning things on the computer, it can be learning new skills, doing volunteer work, mentoring businesses. There are so many activities that we can do in retirement. Some of them may be very altruistic and giving back, and some of them may be completely adventurous and seemingly selfish.
mm,
I want to take a motor home and hit every national park in the country.
mm,
Okay,
mm.
hey, if that sounds great, you go for it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's important too, to realize that we're all individuals, and one size doesn't fit all. So what works for some might not work for others. And it's, I think, important to take some time out and, as you say, look back in your life when you were a child, especially, and see what brought you joy, what you enjoyed doing, and perhaps revisit that. Or, as you say, think about what you might like to have done, but you didn't have the opportunity because of time or life in general. And now you might have that opportunity. So it's all about keeping an open mind, I think.
Mhm.
So, are there any, what's a little, what was your favorite adventure, I think, out of the book?
Oh, out of the book. It is so funny because I have to stop and think about what I put in the book
Oh,
versus, all the adventures I've had in my life. It's just
well, tell me briefly then your top three adventures. It doesn't matter if it's from the book or from life.
I touched on it very briefly in the book. One of Mom's 93 adventures, she and I went to Iceland, and we had done that almost an annual basis. But this particular trip, we went paragliding off the
Wow.
cliff in Vik, and we went zip lining, and we went ice caving all on the same trip. And that was just amazing, to be able to engage in some of those activities with her,
Mm,
for the first time for me and for her,
mm.
and just accomplishing lifelong dreams for her. But they were just pure fun for me.
Yeah, yeah, but special times, isn't it? And special memories for you. So,
Absolutely.
so before we finish today, I'd like to just ask you a question that I put to all my guests, and that is, what does being a woman living well after 50 mean to you? And I actually wish your mum was here because I would have loved to have asked her as well. So for me, health and wellness is important. You have your health, that's your foundation, but there's so much to living a full life. And I just want to get your thoughts on what you think living well means.
And I have to say again, I agree with you in that, yes, physical uh, health and the ability to be able to do things and stay active is very important. But I think living well after 50, somebody once asked me what I think retirement is. And to me, retirement is being able to wake up every day and choose what I do that day. And I think living well after 50 kind of ties into that, to be able to live with that, both a sense of freedom, but also a sense of comfort in who I am and where I am in life, and not necessarily be bound um, by the same limitations and requirements that I was earlier in life, when it was, I have to push forward in my career. I have to attain that next level, get that next raise, that next promotion, be a success, put money away. There's so many different things. And then juggling family. There's
Mm,
so many responsibilities and expectations that are on women throughout our working years, that I think it's wonderful to be able to hit that retirement or over 50. I don't want to say retirement, because
no,
anything over 50, it
yeah.
becomes choices in how we spend our time.
Mm, mm,
And to me, that's what's truly living well, is being able to recognize that freedom from the responsibilities and the social expectations of achievement, and just say, hey, hey, I'm living my life. I'm having fun. This is great. And, you know, I'm going to go on a river cruise next spring just because that sounds awesome.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Yeah, I think many of us, and I'm guilty of it, try to structure our life because that's what we've been used to, and it's very hard to sort of let go and just let the day take its course. But I think we have to find that balance of not overcommitting ourselves to things that don't serve us well. I was just talking to a couple of ladies, and we were talking about the feeling guilty because, if we say no to something. But when we reach this time of life, as you said earlier, we only get one shot, we only get one opportunity. So we need to really start saying, well, okay, it's my life now, it's my time, and be able to just have that mindset, which isn't always easy. But I know that if people read your book, it is very inspiring, and it gives us great ideas, and it's so positive. That's what I love about it. So I'm
Thank
really
you.
grateful that I was able to read an advance copy, actually. So, but it's now published, isn't it? So
Yes.
we we're going to certainly promote that. So for the listeners, if you've enjoyed our conversation today, don't forget to pop over. I'll be leaving the links to connect with Heidi in the show comments, and also take a look at her book, and have a read of that. And also, if you've enjoyed our conversation today, please share it with a friend who you think might benefit from listening to our topic. And leave me a like and a review or a comment, because I always love hearing from you. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. So thanks for joining me today, Heidi. It's been lovely. I would have loved to have talked longer about your adventures, but I can always go and read the book, which is great. And it's just lovely to have you, and also your mum. I felt like she was with us as well.
She's she's always with me. Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she would have loved meeting you as well. And this has just been wonderful sitting here chatting with you, and I've enjoyed it tremendously. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I do too. And I just meet some beautiful women through the podcast, and
Mhm.
I always feel uplifted after conversation. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And don't forget to embrace and live life every day, and on with the butter. So have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you soon.